Now, sometimes in the life of a film reviewer, you see a movie and you kind of put off wanting to watch it because you think, man, this movie is not going to be one that I enjoy. Now, I'll admit that that's how I felt when I first received my screener for The Hating Game. Um, like I always do when I get a screener, the first thing I do is go and have a look on IMDb to see what I can expect from the film. I don't read reviews or anything like that. I just have a quick look to see who the director is, who the cast is, um, what kind of genre it is, just so I can kind of get a feeling for what I'm about to be in for. Now, when I received this screener, I was kind of like, okay, I might put this one off until a day when I really haven't got anything to do, because it just looked like your stereotypical comedy romance that's, doesn't really appeal. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against romantic comedy films. I just find that so many of them are so similar, and so many of them are poorly written and poorly acted that I lose interest in them. Now, I sat down to watch this film, and actually found out that, yeah, it's a piece of fluff, but it's a piece of fluff that is actually fairly enjoyable to watch. Now, it's directed by Peter Hutchings, who actually has a bit of a history of making romantic comedies, and it stars Lucy Hale as Lucy Hutton and Austin Stoll as Joshua Templeman. Now, the interesting thing is here, Lucy and Joshua both do very similar roles. They work as assistants for publishing houses, but in a strange twist of fate, their publishing houses ended up merging. Now, Lucy worked for a very serious publishing house that has a proud history of bringing out fascinating and interesting books, while Joshua Templeman works for a publishing company that kind of bring out trash. They bring out a lot of sports biographies and things like that just would not appeal to the people that read the books that Lucy's company makes. Now, the two of them find themselves basically sharing an office. They work opposite each other, and they can't stand one another. Joshua seems to love to mimic and tease Lucy. Lucy hates the fact that he even exists and thinks that he has no right ever working for a publishing house. To make matters even worse, his boss, Bexley, played by Corbin Bempson, is an absolute pig. He treats his staff terribly. You can tell that he's in the job only for the money. He has no interest in literature. He doesn't really care. There's comments made in there that he doesn't even read any of the books that they produce and things like that. Now, of course, as you can expect, what happens in this is that soon Lucy and Joshua start to have feelings for each other, and they fight against it. And when I say fight, I literally mean fight. They have so many complaints about them in the office that it's starting to get pretty shocking, to be honest. And that's where I think this story becomes very interesting, because as you normally expect with one of these movies, you get an hour and 20 minutes of a couple that can't stand each other, and then all of a sudden you get like 10 to 30 minutes of when they suddenly realize they like each other and they should be together. That's not exactly how this film works. Lucy and Joshua start to realize fairly early on that there's feelings between the two, but they're both too proud to admit it. Little things happen and they find themselves in little situations, but Lucy is convinced that Joshua is a liar and that he's not the guy for her. Now, what I think I really enjoyed about this film is that Christina Menget's screenplay, which is taken from Sally Thorne's novel, actually gives a fair bit of characterization to Joshua. Now, you could look at the character of Joshua and think that he's just a piece of meat for the female audience out there. Austin Stoll has to be one of the most attractive men in Hollywood. Let's not beat around the bush with that. He is. But they actually make the character of Joshua interesting. He's not just there for eye candy. You start to learn as the film goes on that there's a reason why he's the way that he is. You start to realize that there's a reason why he works in literature. There's some great moments in there where you find out that his whole entire family are doctors and that he's the black sheep in the family. And it's really fun to watch that relationship between Joshua and Lucy develop as it goes on. There's twists and turns in there that you don't see coming, which I found are really interesting because that does not happen very often in romantic comedies. But for me, this is actually quite an enjoyable film. I'm not going to sit here and say it's an award winner or it's going to be in my top 10 list at the end of the year, because it won't be. But what I will say is, if you're just looking for some time to kill and to go and watch a film that both sexes will enjoy, then you could be doing a lot worse than The Hating Game. I'm going to give this one 3 out of 5. Go and check it out. I think you'll enjoy it if you kind of like fluffy films that are a little bit different. But yeah, 3 out of 5 for The Hating Game from me.